Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Q&A that Yoshi-P recently did for Final Fantasy XIV. This took place live during the 14-hour broadcast where we covered Letter from the Producer Live number 73. In case you're wondering why this took a whole week for me to make a video on, quite frankly, I just forgot. It was at like 3 in the morning, we weren't allowed to co-stream it, so it just kind of slipped my mind. Fortunately, I read my YouTube comment section and I saw a comment that said, "When are you doing this?" And I said, right, I should take a look at that. Read through it and said, you know what? Definitely worth a video. So here we are. We are going to be covering all of the Q&A. All of the translations here are unofficial, so if there are mistakes at all, you know, just giving you a little bit of a heads up that this isn't officially stated by Square Enix or translated by Square Enix. Thank you to Aluna Minori for doing all of the heavy lifting as you usually do, and we're actually going to be taking a look at this as part of a two-part post on Reddit. It's a lot of characters, so they had to make 2 whole posts for it, and I'll be sure to include that in the description below. So the way they did this is they invited players to a 24-man alliance and just let them all ask questions. Like, they just went through them one at a time. Alliance A, Alliance B, Alliance C, and then they even rotated in a second group of people. So there's a lot of questions to cover. So first question, if you don't mind, may I know what the average lifespan of each race is? Well, he calls for Oda-san because he doesn't know the answer. He doesn't say, he doesn't think there's such info even in the lore settings. It's like, even if there was, I don't think they'll want to make it public, since in character creation, players can create a handsome old man if they put in the effort. The players want to, and if we create lore setting the average lifespan for races, wouldn't that make the character they created end up pointless because of the age setting? I mean, it could happen, but yeah, I don't think we'll release such information. Feeling that Koji and Oda would have the answer, but I don't believe such info will be released. Pretty straightforward answer. Nothing else to really add to that one. Are you planning to release a new Ultimate for 6.3 and 6.5? You'd think this was me who actually asked this, or any of the hardcore raiders that would ask a question like that. So the Yoshida's first statement here, I kind of agree with. I have no idea why you would assume there will be a new Ultimate implemented for both 6.3 and 6.5. They've never said that. They said they have one planned for 6.3. Yoshida, in the Letter from the Producer Live, I think it was 71 or 72. He even made mention of it again, that there's a new Ultimate plan for 6.3. However, there are some concerns that are being raised here with this Q&A. We do plan on creating one more Ultimate for patch 6.x, and we are exactly working on it right now. I don't think we will delay it all the way and have it released for 6.5, however. Gotta say that the content for the next Ultimate will be quite a sight to behold. So people have read really into this, saying that this almost sounds like Ultimate might not release right in 6.31. I think this is just Yoshida's normal way of talking, where he's not going to say exactly when it's going to be because, you know, they just don't want to do that yet. But he's also saying, I don't think it'll take all the way till 6.5, but I don't think there's a chance of it happening in like the 6.4 cycle. Some people think maybe this means it could be in 6.35. And I think, again, he's leaving the door open for that possibility. Doesn't want to say 6.31 and then something goes wrong and they can't do that. But they're probably working towards it being on that patch. So that's still when I'm going to be expecting it. For Crystalline Conflict, are there plans to implement team rankings? Another really common question. I said, yeah, they've been having discussions about what to do for team-based, but they want to prioritize on increasing the base of the players first for PvP. We do want to hold official tournaments based on region as well as other aspects, but in Japan, we do have other events like the 14-hour broadcast, so we couldn't work on it much at the current level. But we are proceeding through the plan behind the scenes, so we're going to start from official tournaments first. A big non-answer, kind of, because they said what we want to do for team-based, but this player is asking for an in-game team ranking for seasons. And they kind of just move the entire answer away from it being about that at all, talking about official tournaments and whatnot. So I don't think, honestly, personally, my opinion, I don't think we're going to see team ranking ever within Final Fantasy XIV, a traditional queue for team ranks, maybe a specific like champions queue style thing where people who are very serious about getting into the competitive official tournaments need to play through a specific type of bracket in order to actually qualify. But other than that, I don't know. I don't know exactly what they're planning to do for that one. 4. There are questions. There are some hairstyles. There are questions. It's been a long day. Where the front bangs will disappear when wearing hats. Is it difficult to have the front bangs displayed when wearing hats? I assume the answer is yes. It will cause new hairstyles to be difficult to implement, which is why trade-offs happened in order to make this work. For hats, we tend to prioritize the design first, since these specifications forcefully make the front bangs disappear. We have no choice but to follow it when implementing. Because of this restriction, we are able to implement new hairstyles into the game, so it's difficult to address this. However, the point here is that if your request is, can't you do something about it, have you know our team is working hard to address this issue. So if you go to our forums, create a thread, and ask to address on a specific hairstyle when wearing a hat, it'll be easy to prioritize. So unlike some of our usual answers, it's actually like very difficult to do, and this is why. But we are doing something about it, or at least we're trying to. So the more hairstyles we have from player reference, the easier it'll be for us to go back and look at how do we achieve this with this hairstyle. He says not every hairstyle, it doesn't seem like they're going to make a systematic change to the way the hairstyles and the hats are coded against each other, but at least trying to make efforts on a hairstyle to hairstyle basis is something they might be able to achieve. Question number 5. Personally, this is an issue that is expected, but due to data center travel, Team's Mana data center has become the focus stop for people looking for parties when raiding, which makes recruitment in other data centers neglected as a result. This is something we all thought might happen in NA, but we also realized that unlike in Japan, a lot of the Western data centers have sort of raiding communities within each sector, within each data center, that vary drastically from one to the other. So people in North America, at least, ended up staying largely on their same data center to raid, which is kind of a good thing. However, with Japan, I think this is happening because with Japan, they pretty much all try to converge into one strategy. And that becomes the standard that everyone's expected to know. There's a much greater effort in achieving that over there. Not to say there isn't different strategies and that the groups don't sometimes experiment with different things, but from my experience, even when I raided over there, that was the general idea. And that's that's one of the main reasons why their clear rates are so much higher. So if everyone's going to be playing the same and the strats are all going to be the same, regardless of data center, it makes a lot more sense for everyone to converge onto one. And this is the result. Yoshida goes into a super big explanation about how they thought that was going to happen. And that it's not really an easy thing to do. You know, they're not saying they're giving up on it, but they will require some time to come up with a long-term solution. So there's really not an answer for this at the moment. And then he talks about how data center travel, you know, behind the scenes. So take, for example, both me and Foxconn are situated at different logical data centers, and somehow party recruitment is made accessible through penetration, and I managed to join the party despite being in a different data center. Then when we match up to enter content, things will definitely happen where people like me could have to make the travel from my original data center to Foxconn data center, and depending on the traffic situation, this could take like 3 or 4 minutes. So it sounds like if they were to actually do a cross data center party finder, which seems to be what this portion of the answer is actually about, that whoever the host of the party is would dictate the logical data center that the group is on, and you would instead have to transfer when moving over to the instanced server, which sounds not great, but I mean, as long as everyone's on the same page about it, I could be down for that. And then it says traffic situation. But then the problem becomes, what if there's a lot of traffic? Now all of a sudden this raid group's waiting all this time for this person to actually transfer over. So they said they're going to observe further before making any decisions. No matter what, our short-term solution will include implementing something equivalent to a shutter. And ultimately, it's still better to use data center travel and travel from one point to the other for everyone to gather at one point. So in other words, he's saying the only way for them to solve it is to just stop people from transferring. And that's obviously not something they're going to do. So those are all the questions they took from Party A, and then they moved over to Party B for the first alliance. Yoshi-P, do you prefer smoking cigarettes or heated tobacco? As a non-smoker, I'm not familiar, just heated tobacco. That just sounds like a cigarette to me. Maybe it's like the filterless, like tobacco rolls. Again, not a smoker, so I don't know much about it. But he just said he prefers cigarettes. I've seen this man at PAXs, at conventions. If you ever catch him not doing anything, he is just outside, just getting some stress out with those cigarettes. You can see it in the man. He's like, this is my moment. This is my moment right here. Try not to bother him. Will the Warrior of Light be able to visit the place named Corvos? So this is actually the homeland, the original homeland of the Garleans, where they were forced out. And we thought this might be like an exploration zone going into Endwalker, but it doesn't look like we're doing anything in the short term. Yoshi-P says, yeah, I mean, any location, you know, that you can see, we plan to allow your character to visit that place. And our objective here is to allow visit to places that are actually named in the game. But there's no immediate plans for Corvos anytime soon. They're in their second major patch after 6.0, and considering we do plan on making 7.0, they plan on it at the very least, right? Of course, there will be a lot of places that we can visit, and it's not going to be just Corvos, but you can also look forward to visiting other places and experiencing other cultures. So essentially, yeah, we'll go there eventually. That's what the answer boils down to. But we're not going to say when. We're not going to promise you when, just at some point. So this is a personal opinion one for Yoshi-P. What's the most interesting raid you've done so far from the perspective of a producer, director, and a black mage? He says it's very difficult because there's 11 years worth of content to look towards. If we do, we will end up not being able to move forward. So he doesn't really like remember everything or try to commit every fight to memory in such a way that might inhibit their development process. We record the failures and use them as reference for what not to do, but his perspective doesn't really matter much in that case. Since if I were to state my preference or point out which is good and what's not, all the content designed and released may end up leaning in that direction. Sometimes we feel that way, even if he's not doing it. Rather, each individual designer will do their best to create content and enjoy players' reaction to it, and that's what they paid their attention to. However, as for a black mage, so that covers the first half of the answer. Now for the black mage half, he says E8S would be the place. That would be Shiva, for those who don't remember. Eden Shiva. Since it allows small tricks, and the more I play, the more I discover uptime for the content, like going to a certain spot through ethereal manipulation to get more uptime. Yeah, it's standard black mage stuff. There's also a lot of strats you can use in this fight, and everything can be compatible when compared to other content. Probably had the most time spent on that fight. As for the producer-director... Oh, no, so this is actually for the producer-director POV. Alliance-wise, he thinks Ozma is a big one. Graphics and mechanics-wise, managed to achieve an upgrade on that, and every challenge was new at that time. And that makes the person who created that fight a reliable designer. Oh, yeah. I've done DSR. He's reliable, all right. Other than that, another one would be Omega. As I went through the first and second half of the battle, it really shows that Nakagawa Daisuke capability as a raid designer despite not having prior experience. And while there are opinions about making the second half of the battle better and cut down the loop that occurred in the battle, the growth and idea that is presented. So, cut down the loop that occurred in the battle. So, even though I know Omega himself actually casts loop, I think he's referring to Final Omega when he talks about the loop. A big problem with the designs in Stormblood is the first half of the fight would be completely unique. You'd go through a new mechanic, and the second half was just doing it again. And there really wasn't any functional difference between that. Just a problem that happens a lot in the Stormblood raids. So I think that's what he's referring to there. But, I mean, it's still a cool fight. I just did it the other day on Gunbreaker. So, you know, I remembered it. I remember enjoying it. But I did also remember being kind of bored of the second half as well. So that's it for that question. Although we have many themed costumes, only Namazus seem to have head equipment available. Are there plans to create body equipment for the Namazu? Is there a demand for this? Yoshi. Come on now. It's wearing the frog bodysuit, but still the stream comment seems to mention that it's available. Oh, well, since people have stated their demand, okay. We'll let the team know. Gonna get Namazu bodies. Nice. The left-hand MMORPG device personally supervised by Yoshi-P I owned in the past is broken. When I brought this to the maker to fix it, told me that due to the end of production, they can't accept my device for fixes. Ooh. Yeah, I'm not big on buying stuff that is made in a limited run, that is made for sort of like specific niche uses. I mean, this is a risk specifically, not specifically with this device, but with any device you get that is kind of very particularly tailored. But still mass produced like this, it's always an issue you're gonna get. Like, I know it's nice to have something like this, something that's Final Fantasy 14 themed, but I mean, this is a risky run. So he's gonna go inquire Hori, which is the brand. This will depend on Hori's intention as well. Considering I do have the intention of making another device and the plan is underway, I'll provide updates when there's one. So for this person and for anyone out there, if you enjoy that particular device, it sounds like a new one is being made right now. So if yours does break, or if you just want to get a backup, it sounds like that'll be an option in the near future. This is on job balance. That's a big question on job balance. There are situations where Paladin or Warrior excluded from party recruitment due to low DPS. Yeah, that's just one part of the blunder that happened. I would like to know if you have plans on making job balance better in the future before new Savage patches drop. And I wonder if the adjustment team and testing team work better together to ensure better job balance without committing such a blunder. I know this question sounds weird, but this really bothers me, so hopefully you can address it. I mean, couldn't ask for a more direct raid-oriented question, right? You know, what are you going to do about jobs literally being excluded? And it does happen, believe it or not. Well, it's just quite a spicy comment, as Yoshi... Dude, when Yoshi-P says it is spicy, it's spicy. So at first, he attributes some of this problem to their blunder with P8S in particular, where their numbers were off for about 1%. However, he then goes on to say that the adjustment team and the development team are not two separate teams, but they're one in the same. Now, I have to assume he has... Again, this is entirely in Japanese, so I can't imagine there's any misinterpretation here. The job adjustment or balance team and testing team, I'd have to imagine that that's what the person asking the question means, to make sure that the job balance is in line not just with each other, but with the way the tier is designed. The battle system team also performs adjustments on the battle, and they definitely repeated the process of clearing the content they themselves created before releasing it to the public. But, you know, that disparity, no matter how hard you try to bring it down, and while it's happened in the past, it's something. Obviously, we could just make the hurdle lower, but we're designing high-end content, so I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. We don't want to give up on that setting. While I do think you're right in what you're saying here, well, what can I say here is that we will do better next time. To preserve their honor, and this isn't related to anyone here, but I can say there aren't many games that underwent such precise balancing. Still, 1.5%. To tell you the truth, I want to find a solution to the problem where jobs are locked from raids, meaning he doesn't want them to be locked. This is a difficult thing to address because we've done a lot to reduce the possibility of it's happening. Okay, I know I kind of say this a lot recently, but we've seen many cases where only a portion of information were spread like wildfire, and that incomplete... Oh, man. Yeah. I've been called... Yoshi-P may not call me out by name, but we all miss a detail here or there once in a while, as full as some of us try to be of every little detail that we can possibly have. So he kind of doesn't want to talk about it too much here. Safest approach we can take is to lower the difficulty in general. Sure, it's a safe approach, but I wonder if it's actually healthy for the game itself. So instead, he says, yeah, please allow us to keep challenging the numbers, and we promise to fix them quickly when mistakes occur. Essentially saying they can't really change their overall process. They can't just decide to make the game easier. He wonders about the health of the game if they were to do that, just to try to eliminate this issue altogether. So instead, they just got to be a lot better about it, and they have to fix mistakes as quickly as they possibly can. We also discussed on including staff members where the job is to only hit the dummy continuously. And we did put out our recruitment, but not many would be willing to take this job. So yeah, we are thinking a lot on this. And where this seems like a non-answer, but this is an issue we'll forever struggle on. I mean, yeah, MMO balance, in fact, online game balance is a forever struggle. Every moment you think you have it right, there's something wrong. And for every wrong you fix and make it right, there's probably 2 more wrongs you just made. So yeah, I mean, it's not even a non-answer. It's just, can you balance the game better? It's like the unanswerable. It's like, yeah, we're trying, man. I'm sorry. We made a mistake. What else can you really ask for, right? I love Glamour, but I've always had to depend on external sites to look at how dungeon equipment and equipment that cannot be sold in the market board. So I would like a feature in game where I can freely check on how equipment would look like on my character, like a catalog. So Yoshi-P's like, oh, just thinking of the logistics for it. Because they have the fitting room feature for the Mog Station equipment, he says this is totally possible, but he's thinking of like being able to get the item ID itself and being able to pull it from every dungeon and display it and everything. So he starts really thinking about it, like, you know, oh, okay, with the way it's done, how do I do this? He says it's not impossible to pull off. He thinks it's possible. It's going to take some time, but he's going to move this idea forward and see what they can come up with. So that's essentially, we're going to try. So this may be a feature you actually get in the future. And my phone's going off. Hey, I'm busy. No, Fitbit, leave me alone. I'm busy recording. This thing doesn't need to be talking to me right now. Question number 8. I do remember there was a conversation about implementing joint ownership accounts for personal housing, but I haven't heard updates of it. I forgot about that. I don't recall that at all. The answer here is basically just, yeah, I mean, we'd like to do it, but we have other housing related things that are more important right now. And of course, as per usual, further optimization and addition of more housing wards. We know they're working on more housing wards right now. Who knows when we'll see them? 6.3, 6.4. We don't know. But they're always working on that. And forever, I'm going to get the same comments on my YouTube videos about they should just scrap the whole thing and do personal housing for everybody. We can't have this excuse all the time. They just have to admit it's a failed version and they just... For every time he gets the question, I get a comment about it. So I'm very, very used to that. First Alliance Party, Party C. Question 1. I can roughly tell that your daily task would consist of addressing tasks at hand, but I would like to know what are the points you consider important when balancing work and private life, as well as what you consider important when increasing work productivity and your mindset on the matter. So Yoshi-P just says, I don't differentiate between work and private life at all. So there's no balance to be had. There's just things I want to do and things I don't want to do. My man, whenever I say that to people, they make it sound like I ain't got my priorities in check. You know what I say? Dude, sometimes life just gets to be simple like that. Sometimes you just got to make it simple like that. This is something I think personally, I think this is a special case considering this is asked as a private matter. This is something I think I can answer, but this is really special. Sorry to say this, but I don't think of this as a job at all. You know, most people, I'm gonna correct this a little bit because it's bugging me. Most people would definitely prefer to have it that way. You want the way that you earn your income to not feel like a job. And he doesn't think of it as a job at all. It's an activity, so he doesn't really shelve his job away because he doesn't want to do it or it needs to be separate in his mind. And I heard about how I don't seem to power down myself when I indulge in private stuff. Rather than to say I power myself down, it's more like I always get myself involved in things that is equivalent to work. My brain always functions that way. So he sounds like almost like a workaholic in a sense, like everything he does, he needs to be like 100% for it. So to put this generally, and I don't know if this is related to burnout or not, but soon after I took over Legacy 14, I worked by operating extremely long hours. This doesn't mean that I'm working in a sweatshop company or something, but the massive amount of information that is given to me and the info I needed to reply back was massive. And when I look at the volume of issues I need to address it, felt as if I'm entering some form of God mode. I hate God mode Yoshi-P with like the white irises and like the anime energy coming out right now. Oh man. If tend to reply to them immediately in large volumes so much that I couldn't catch sleep even if I wanted to. The reason is because I need to be able to answer these massive issues I'm facing in both massive amounts and short time. And until I got everything sorted out, all I did was replying to questions that was given to me until I got cut off. And once I replied everything back, I slept for a good whole 3 hours. Woke up on the next day, did it all over again. To address everything without leaving anything behind, well, what I listed above was just an extreme example, but rather to say that there is a switch I can't turn off myself. It's more like something I do because I don't want to leave behind things unresolved. I've been there, dude. You ever just not do something before you go to bed and it just haunts you the entire night? I can't do it. You got to get up and get it done. That is not to say you need to address what is unresolved in your mind, but it's more of a question on why this is something that is unresolved. Like, is there a due date that you need to meet? Is it getting closer? Is that due date something you agreed to clear? Then you have something serious thinking, no, this is not some game here. So I think, yeah, it'll be fine to find a reason you can agree on and identify. He got away from the question super hard, but Yoshi-P just, his brain's always on. What can I say? It's better than Party Finder most of the time. Anyway, let me get this on the screen. Question number 2, a question for Yoshi-P as a Warrior of Light here. Through A Realm Reborn to Endwalker, are there any dialogue lines that are your favorite, or is there one that left the most impact on you? He just says he has several dialogue lines that he likes, but to pinpoint on one specific is not something he can easily do. One thing I want to convey through 14 the most is that there's no such thing as absolute harmony in the world, and interpretations can change depending on position stance. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty well covered. You know, that's it just wants to make sure that proper divide between allies and enemies. Each of them have their reasons and motives to fight, what lies ahead. Yeah, you know what? I can already see at the bottom when it says, well, this answer isn't really dialogue related. That's for sure. So he just ends up talking about what he wants to convey through Final Fantasy XIV story for the remainder of this. Talks about different perspectives, sides, all that good stuff. Question 3 from this alliance. This is about Black Mage. Since MP regeneration tick is not currently constant, it makes it hard to play Black Mage as they have to keep monitoring the MP bar. Yeah, that can get kind of annoying. So the question is, will it be possible to make the MP recovering time constant? No. I love when Yoshi-P just gives us the raw no. It's the server tick is the server tick, and they're not messing with the server tick. However, they are going to be making job adjustments at some point to make it so that Black Mage doesn't even have to think about this as a problem anymore. I wonder if the solution is instead to make Umbral Ice, instead of it causing MP to regenerate based on the server tick, but to make it that spells cast in ice mode actually generate a flat amount of MP. at which point, you know, you just have to make sure you cast a certain number of spells to at least get up to 10,000. And anything you cast after that is just MP you can't do anything with, but maybe you need to use it for mobility. I know some Black Mage mains who wouldn't like that. They like the little complexity of needing to play around the server tick. Sometimes they make in the moment decisions about whether or not to cast an extra spell under ice just to guarantee the full tick, or if they try to rush back into fire. And there are situations where one or the other can be more beneficial. So I actually think more experienced Black Mages, and some part of them probably wants them to change this, but another part of them probably wants them to kind of leave it the same. So there's that, you know, kind of personal skill expression, which is something that is very heavily under fire right now. So we'll have to see. Question 4, I've had a lot of fun playing Ishgard Restoration. Are there any plans to implement content that is like Ishgard Restoration, like ranking type content that involves crafting and gathering, or content that uses high difficulty recipes? According to the ones we picked up recently on ideas we want to implement in the future, it's not that we don't have one, but we currently don't have concrete plans on where and when we'll create content like this again, since we're working on something major like Island Sanctuary, and we've previously worked on a major content like Ishgard Restoration. It'll require an amount of people from a certain section to work on if we are to tackle the content on that scale again. And when we do, it'll only end up becoming some third level major content that we can implement. We already created these specifications anyway, so if you don't mind a smaller scale on that content, then it's definitely possible. However, we're happy to receive this kind of request from players, and we'll look into it. So yeah, you know, they're glad to hear people enjoyed it. They want it again, but they are using those same resources and other things. And when they do it, it's, you know, it's not going to be quite the same. If you don't mind it on a smaller scale and it's not what it was before, but it's something a little bit less, then it might be a little bit more feasible if they decide to go that route with it. Very pleased with the photo book service available, but I want an offshoot service that involves creating acrylic stands of my own character. Are there any plans for one? Oh yeah, I forgot. So there's a link to that. I'm not going to click it in the middle of this because I might screw everything up. But I do remember there being that photo book service. I think they showed it during a live letter or something like that. So they said that they want to work on 3D printing companies to get some kind of machine service, even if it costs like, you know, $100 to $200. You know, they'd still like to be able to offer a 3D printing, I guess, anything, just something that's 3D printed for their players. Putting my plan aside, though, acrylic stands also involve printing, and that's definitely a possibility. So how about this? Are there any companies who specialize in creating acrylic stands who are also the Warriors of Light? AKA, he looked at his chat and said, do any of you own acrylic stand companies? Any at all? I mean, a company representative is good enough. So if there's anyone who wants to approach us about it, then we can definitely work something out. So please consider this out. He literally just looked at, you ever looked at Twitch chat for business opportunities? Because it's normally not a good idea. But yeah, so he's just saying, you know, go through the proper channels. And this is something they could actually make a reality. Still, I like the enthusiasm for it. Just the particular setting for it. Maybe not the best, but I'm sure the word will get around all the same. So maybe we'll be getting something like that. In Eorzea, we have ingredients to make omelet rice, but the omelet rice furnishing is not available in-game yet. Really love omelet rice, and I've been waiting to see furnishings related to omelet rice in game someday. Especially really likes omelet rice. We had omelet rice during our previous segment, Eorzea Cafe's top 10 gotta guess them all, but they all somehow didn't enter the ranking, unfortunately. So the issue here is just priority. So yeah, it's like they can do it. There's nothing stopping them from doing this. It's just a matter of priority. So if he says the word, they'll do it. I think it's better for the community team to gather all the things and requests made here, plus all the things I've said in this segment, and send it to the development team. So, in other words, FoxClon, write this down. We got work to do. Glad to see it. Again, like the enthusiasm for it, just saying it's literally just a matter of us saying, okay, we're doing this behind the scenes. And that's all it would really take. This is a question related to the second half of P8S. There was a mechanic where we are required to create Phoenix out of all the composites. I want to know if there were any plans for other composite patterns. I did too, because I was like, why are most of these possible? Why don't most of these just instant fail the fight? To some degree, I kind of like that they don't, because when you're first figuring that out before, you know, it's common knowledge, everyone just knows to make Phoenix. You end up kind of like going through the reasoning and the possibilities. It starts tying into the lore in a very interesting way. But it's also like, but why? Why did they leave them all in? Like they could have done that for whatever. Including the failed ones, well, there were other patterns initially that used those. However, I told them it's going to be impossible to have this many composite patterns. It resulted in a version that is currently released. If we kept our initial plan, it would be more like an ultimate level mechanic. And yeah, I could see that. I mean, that's almost common sense to me that it would have turned out that way, because then the amount of permutations becomes excessive, to say the least. Initially, the designers thought up various patterns without putting restrictions in mind there, but from there, the amount keeps getting reduced. If I'm not mistaken, I think I asked a somewhat similar question to the designer and had a discussion that lasted about an hour or 30 minutes, with dummy testing as well. That's what I remember if my memory serves right. So yeah, it almost happened that way. But they just said that if we really go through with this is an ultimate level mechanic. In other words, we already know about 8 years from now what this ultimate's going to look like to some capacity. You know what I mean? Next question. I'd like to consult Yoshi-P about life. I really love buying clothes and games so much that it becomes wasteful. Thinking about trying to seal my wallet, but do you have better suggestions? He just poses a counter question. Why do you want to seal your wallet? Until you can come up with a follow-up question, let's move on to the next one. So they actually did come back to it. And all that ends up going through. I mean, this is not much I can really say. It's not like this is about the game, so we could probably just skip through this one. But he just wants to break down, I guess, the psychology of it, of like, why do they want to not buy these things? I guess, you know, so you pay in full amount instead of installments. Yeah, they just buy it. They're an impulse buyer. You know, it's weird because Yoshi-P's like, he's not even chastising them for like the question. He's just like, why? Why don't you want to do this? Assuming you have credit cards and whatnot at hand and you have things you want to purchase, but you haven't, then assuming you can pay for it proper, then just purchase those things. He's like, yo, listen, life's short. You just got to buy. If you see it, you want it, you're going to get it. You know, once you fulfill your desire to the extreme, you reach a stage where everything cools down. There should be some people cannot stop themselves, man. Some people cannot stop themselves. Make a choice. Keep buying until you feel empty, or you took the other choice. As long as you're able to pay them yourself, that's a good thing, since having the ability to pay by yourself isn't causing trouble to anyone around you. Yeah, he's just saying as long as you're not causing financial turmoil to people, then you're probably okay to keep buying stuff. All right, so that's the end of the first post. Now we got to scroll through to the second post, which is the Second Alliance, Party A. Regarding side quests, one thing I found out is that the NPC where you fetch the side quest on will disappear once you clear them, and considering you went your way to establish connections with them, it feels like a waste, and you couldn't even enact conversations with them anymore after clearing it. Want to know if we can still have conversation with the NPC even after clearing the side quest that involved them. So they don't say any specific NPC, they just mean like there's dialogue that NPCs are programmed to have, but they just disappear, and you can't then have that conversation. So either did it in the moment, or you didn't do it. You know, that's just it. You just don't get to experience that. Yoshi-P goes into a long explanation about how NPCs are actually, I guess, kind of placed into the game, and that it kind of makes it hard to solve this issue. You know, it's more like they thank us for helping them solve the issue, and from there it makes us glad because we no longer need to follow up. If we keep doing this, actually we did quite a lot of follow-up here, like NPCs related to the Scions, and the dialogue changes with certain NPC whenever the player progresses the main story. Yeah, there's a lot of that in the game. Well, what we can do here is maintain the important NPCs, the ones that are relevant. I say this question is similar with the hat question asked earlier, but if you can point out the specific NPC that you want us to explore further, we can give, and if you can give us a specific answer that I can relay to the team. So this is something they can't do like a broad scope, but per NPC, if there's something that really needs to change, they could absolutely do it. However, there's one little bonus comment here at the bottom. Players are upset they can't meet Gaia after her related quests are cleared. I am one of those people. I'll say that her role's not entirely done yet, so we will have something for her in the future. Eventually. Doesn't say when. Eventually. Given what we're dealing with right now, yeah, I mean, sure, eventually. It won't be an immediate one, but I appreciate your patience. Yeah, I mean, this should have been a given. I think we all pretty much accepted Gaia wasn't done with the story yet. Now, it is worth saying that the question of whether or not her follow-up quest is in a side quest, or if it's part of the main quest, is a question. We know there's a secret quest line in 6.3 that Ishikawa wrote, and people are going to be surprised by it, apparently. And so, who knows? Maybe that's Gaia. We don't know. Maybe that's why he was like, but not immediately. No, eventually, some point. Just want to cover up real quick. Sildi was announced earlier to be released in 10 days. They're talking about the Sildian Subterrane. They're talking about the Variant and Criterion dungeons. It seems it's like it's going to be implemented on the week where our static is scheduled to work on a weekly clear, so it is quite unfortunate. Basically saying it releases on a Tuesday and they raid on Tuesdays. Although I am receptive of the delay extension of patch schedules in general, I wonder if it's possible for you to announce the implementation date earlier. Yeah, people have been asking for this for years. I mean, we want this for Savage too. It's why I make such a habit of predicting patch cycles. I predicted this would be on the 18th. Most people took me at my word, and a lot of people ended up taking off work, and it worked out. There's always the chance it goes wrong, though. What if it's the 25th and you can't change the day? By the time you know, it might be too late for some people. So they think it's not possible to predict the standard for each static. I mean, yeah, the question is, my static reads on a Tuesday. And it's like, okay, well, if you're raiding on a Tuesday, it doesn't matter when it releases. You raid on a Tuesday. I think what he's saying, though, it's the 8th week, so they would all maybe have all of the loot that they need. So they really want to prioritize it, and so they just wish they had kind of known. But he even's like, why is everyone in a rush to clear this content? I mean, I should have said that previously too, but this is really something people should clear in a rush. I'm aware that there's a weekly lockout and whatnot, but is it that much of a difference between clearing it quick and slow? I mean, it'd be nice if people can take things easy, and while I understand the feeling of getting pressured by the people around you that cleared, but you could have just not, you could just not compare yourself with them. That's just life advice. What he's saying, I can't do that. I'm always thinking like, oh, what about the person? What about that person? I gotta do it. I gotta do it. I gotta go. I gotta go. Got a heavy urge for it. You gotta burn yourself out playing this way. I don't. I'm doing all right, but a lot of people do, that's for sure. Of course, we want to announce things a lot earlier, but this is something we mentioned since A Realm Reborn. Once we have decided on a scheduled date, we really try our best to not make adjustments on the schedule. Since we had quite a major case where we had to delay the release by 2 weeks during Endwalker, and I'm aware that I'm not in a position to say this, but we always perform adjustments and debugging on content until the very last minute. Yeah, so all this is saying is that this is not an easy thing to do. Either way, if we announce it earlier, then we somehow have to delay it a week or two. This will definitely be, there'll be people complaining. So releasing it around this period is actually just the date where we can barely make it. Truth be told, though, the release date for this content is actually decided 6 months ago. Good, because that's about the time that I figured it out. So there you go. Yeah, this is just, I hope you understand why we don't announce it earlier. You know, technically they could, but if something changes, they don't want to be held responsible, and if it happens multiple times, they're going to be under fire. I get it, but I do wish they could at least do it maybe a week. Maybe a week earlier? One more week earlier? This is a question related to housing interior. It seems that the position of the stairs and pillar inside the house is fixed. I would like to be flexible with the pillars for both personal and FC house, or having the option to remove the windows on walls or have no pillars. Yeah, essentially wanting to make changes to the actual structure of the house, not just the furnishings that are inside, but the actual structure. We are conducting a step-by-step testing here. Although our testing reached a point that results in a house without any pillars whatsoever, but we do get comments where the pillars at home ended up causing a hindrance during roleplay and other activities. So yeah, we're at the point where we're conducting testing now. So they're working on this. At the very least, he talks about the pillars for that. Eventually, we will implement them, and if it's about changing the look of the interior base pillar to something else, then it's possible to do so. But for that base pillar itself, we definitely can't make it removable. For the pillar that he's asking for in particular, however, having a house interior without pillars, a completely plain one, is something we're performing a gradual test on. So the only thing he really answers here is the pillars, not the stairs or the windows or anything like that. So pillars, he might be able to have a pillarless house in the future, I guess, is my takeaway from that one. I've been managing a link shell that is specific to Triple Triad. Are there any plans to implement match audience mode? Yeah, that's a really good question. Or add new rules. Thank you for playing Triple Triad. I don't know why, but when I read that from like a point of desperation, like, thank you. I think there's already one in the PvP mode and Mahjong as well, so when it comes to audience mode, so applying it to Triple Triad shouldn't be an issue. They do receive requests on implementing audience mode for just all Gold Saucer related matches, even during real events. They just have other tasks to attend to, so they want to resolve those first. And it's already 8 months since, so, what should we do? I mean, it's just an extension feature, task-wise. This is actually a UI feature. Wait. We have other tasks to attend to. We want to resolve those first before working on this one. And it's already 8 months since. So 8 months since the expansion launch? Is that what he's saying? I think that's all he's saying. Because otherwise he's saying it's been 8 months. I feel like if there's anything here, it's a slip of the tongue about how they're not done. We haven't heard anything about the new Gold Saucer attraction that they told us was coming at some point. So maybe it's a little bit of a slip of the tongue here. But then he says there's just a lot of teams involved and there's other tasks at hand. Something we're working on right now, we call this a whiteboard feature in-game, where we can scribble things on it. If we can pull this off, it'll be possible to use this feature for planning raid strats and whatnot, such as creating a diagram that calls for players to move here during the mechanic. This is something that they see raiders doing on stream nonstop. We know they watch World Prog, and they see raiders doing things like this. And it sounds like they're just trying to put it in game. Hopefully it's not just like free drawing and they actually have symbols, things that you can place in game. But yeah, they're working on an actual raid planner feature in the game itself. They're trying to create that right now, and that's just the thing that's taking up a lot of their resources. It's UI feedback. They're also getting UI feedback for Island Sanctuary, so they're prioritizing that. So there are just other things that are more important than this, than Triple Triad. I guess viewer mode, audience mode for Triple Triad. But it's definitely something they want to keep on their list of things to do. I would like to know if there's a continued consideration to allow Carbuncle Glamour to be possible for Scholar pets. So I read this in advance. I don't think Yoshi-P understood what the question was. Carbuncle Glamour, we already stopped working on it. Wait a minute. So it's just, so that's, wait, hold on. Long pause, Carbuncle Glamour. Ah, no, I mean, we already stopped. Okay, I want Yoshi-P to make an official statement because I feel like, again, me reading an unofficial translation of this that sounds like they're just done with Eggy Glam. I don't want this to be the way we find out. I feel like we need to find out more formally that they're just not doing it. I feel like it deserves that kind of respect. Well, I mean, but see, this means we need to remake the visual effects, something I need to ask the characters, specifically the VFX team and the animation department. Foxton, somehow the stream comments is asking if this means we're going to get Proto Carbuncle as a summon. He's like, aren't you afraid it's going to devour you? Wait, so somehow this answer ends with Scholar getting Proto Carbuncle. All they were asking, I think, was Eggy Glam for Eos and Celine. Like, just more designs and, like, customizations for them. I don't think it was any more complicated than that. I think specifically, though, it is asking if you can turn Eos or Celine to Carbuncle. Again, there's a little bit lost in translation here, but I do think, at the very least, it is asking about Eggy Glam for Scholar, which has been a long time question, but this answer doesn't seem to imply that that was properly conveyed at all. Please tell us the voice actor for Seiryu. Also, there are several entries in external sites that have made a guess on the voice of a certain uncredited character. We don't know who Seiryu's voice is, huh? This isn't a question I can provide an answer to immediately, so please allow me to confirm beforehand. We probably will need to ask the development department about this. This will require us to confirm on the non-Japanese voices as well, since we can't just name the Japanese ones. So in other words, they'll tell us later. It's something I'll have to confirm, but if you have any character you'd like to know aside from Seiryu, please post your question on the forums. Yeah, if there's any character you don't know the voice to, or more specifically, a character that is uncredited, let them know. So there you go. For this Savage, there seems to be a serious lack of healer participation. I heard on JP this is particularly bad. My question here to you is, are you aware of the reason? Is there something you will reflect on? And if there are any plans to address this issue? And if there is, may I know the plan? So he's just like, I did read one thing written on some summary sites about the Green River. It's a meme referring to healer slots being so open and available in PF due to so little healers willing to join recruitment. So it's a meme over in Japan. Nothing much I can say about that, but we also experience situations where there's a serious lack of tank participation. This seems to depend on the timing and the situation. If I have to make a comment about it, I think the reason would be because it's high difficulty content, and there are other factors which contributed to this as well. There's also the request we got from players that asked us to create more situation that requires healers to heal, and among other things that is asked of us. So in this case, due to a certain circumstance and a certain wall which caused deviation, specifically P8S, I'd have to assume. And this is definitely a thing after operating the game for a long while. But as for the state of healers right now, I think it's just an extremely... I mean, this simply is due to the healer population in general, as well as the population of raiders participating in the tier. But if I have to say anything on the matter, what I'm able to say at this point is please give healers a try. So in other words, his solution is please play healers. Yo, I tried playing healer in the Party Finder, not even for any particular fight. You know, it's really hard to join a Party Finder. So I'm convinced, and you can quote me on this, because I'm pretty sure that I'm to some degree correct. But there is actually not a shortage of healers in the Party Finder right now. What there is a surplus of fucking idiots. What I mean by that is, I have tried to join so many PFs on healer, and P5, P6, P7 locked to 615, 620, 625. And you know what the descriptions say? They don't say they're looking to try to get really fast clears or speed kills. It says clear for one, or clear for a friend, or trying to get my first clear, and then they lock the item level beyond what I can just hop on healer and help with. I don't mind hopping on healer to help people, but the fact of the matter is, we're 8 weeks into the tier, basically, going on next week, and I have been gearing my actual mains the whole time. And all the healers that are geared, you know, those aren't necessarily the healers that are going to be joining PFs. A lot of the time, it's people off-rolling. So, while I'm not saying you should necessarily drop the item level by a massive amount, at least be smart and set it to 610 if it's for like P5 and P6, which are 600 and 605 minimums anyway, because at least that means they bought all the crafted gear. So that might help. I don't know if that's the problem over in Japan, but when I try to join PFs over here as healer, it's a disaster every time. So maybe I think that might be contributing to some degree. Just maybe. It could also just be people don't want to play healer right now. That's also very likely true. But it's a combination of things, you know? In the past producer live letter, you mentioned this will not concern us if we are just playing the game normally. We've been playing the game normally, but somehow I see third-party tool terms that those that are against the rules and regulations being listed as required in lodestones or even mentioned in forums. Personally, just like talking about third-party tools, so I had to mention to these players about how using third-party tools during recruitment or whatnot to get the rules. It's really obsessive sometimes. So if you have plans of trying to provide a warning of those continue third-party tools, man, every time I have to say third-party tools out loud. So Yoshida doesn't even want to talk about this right now. We have no plans to delve into this issue any further. He's aware of how impactful his words is when it comes to this issue, and every time he talks about it, people start mass reporting and harassing people they see using these things, and then they start questioning what even is allowed in the game. So you're trying to ask me if I would go the way to crack down third-party sites that upload everyone's data. You know what site he's talking about. Well aware of how much of a nuisance that site has cost. I mean, to see the numbers we don't want to see. Well, I mean, we want to see them, but, you know, some people don't. They're normally not displayed in the game and then get told about it. But as mentioned before, if we are told that this concerns personal issues, it's not something we have to keep fighting with. This could end up really unhealthy, I believe, of course. If we could quash them for causing troubles, we would have done it already. In other words, it's not as simple as just get rid of that site. I mean, if they're going to be coy about it, I'll be coy about it. And he's not even just talking about that. He's talking about them as a whole, but it's a tough situation because he sees the value in stuff like that. He's said before, you know, he's been a hardcore raider in MMOs before. He understands the value of this data. He just also knows what people do with it is not always on the up and up, you know? This is related to the conversation we had earlier, but defining all things in black and white manner is something I find stiff. Of course, this depends on personality as well. The real intention here is to create things that are fun, and this is what I've been doing up till now, and I've been trying to avoid doing things that cause people to feel discomfort. Still, this is getting out of topic, but I believe I've been saying more than what I should have in the matter. Be it as a member of this company, or as a board director, as a gamer, in personal capacity, and as someone who's obtained full trust from the company, I've likely touched on this topic more than I should have. So I don't think I'll be able to step into this issue anymore. I think we had enough debates about this, so yeah. I don't want this game to end up a game that mainly cracks down on things, and I don't want to create a game like this either. If we have to remove everything, then might as well not work on the game, and it'll be a game where everything becomes a mess. So even if I get pressured on the issue, it's just going to be nothing but trouble, so yeah. In other words, he's saying, yes, it is against the terms of service. Yes, you might be able to get banned for it, but he's not going to talk about it anymore, and he doesn't want to answer questions about it anymore because he doesn't want every time it gets brought up and every time he has to reiterate what is terms of service, what isn't terms of service, and then everyone goes on a mass crusade. All the people who are super against third-party tools, like too much, like I'm not a fan, but there are people who go way overboard with how they react to this. And then we just start seeing people getting reported, mass reported for just having them or even mentioning it once. And it's just like this giant witch hunt. And he's like, bro, it is a video game and they are numbers. All right, listen, I understand that there's sometimes grief with this stuff, but that doesn't mean you get to be a griefer back, you know? It's just like there's no winning here. He just makes people upset no matter how he tackles the problem. So instead, he has stated his stance. He has stated the company's stance. He is going to move on with his life at this point and not make a big fuss about it anymore. So it's kind of like the answer, but you know what we know for a fact? We know they are looking at things people are using and they are working to get them added to the game. They mentioned the whiteboard. Great. We could still use more things with markers. We could use a ton more tools, more UI elements, you know, raid frames, stuff like that. Plenty of things we could use. We know for a fact their efforts are being put into making a lot of those things just a part of the game. That's their solution. But as for the one thing that they will probably never address, and that is a DPS meter, they will probably never address it. So please look forward, or not, look forward to it. Recently, it seems that Carbuncle isn't really active in battle. Because he isn't. It doesn't seem that he isn't active. He doesn't do anything except use the shields. And there are no increases in glamour for carbuncles. Furthermore, they disappear whenever I use fashion accessories. I understand this is due to specification issues, but I feel really bad for Carbuncle. Do you have any plans on propping up Carbuncle? Again, I don't think Yoshi-P fully understands. I think it's because of the whole propping up slang that's used here. When it comes to an issue that requires us to do something about display priority and whatnot, yeah, carbuncle gets brought up when it comes to pinpointing the issues. About carbuncle, well, we do want to think of developing items or whatnot where the theme is related to carbuncle, but if you're asking if we have immediate plans, what I can say is we are considering something on carbuncle's ancestor, which is proto-carbuncle, like their ecology, the way they attack and whatnot, and please allow us to consider on this. So it sounds like they want carbuncle to be a more active piece of the game, and proto-carbuncle might just be a way to do that. The way they attack, the fact that he says the way that they attack, but the problem is I can't fully interpret this because he could just mean proto-carbuncle related, not combat related stuff, but like other related stuff. But the fact that he says the way they attack, I mean, that reads to me as like Summoner getting a proto-carbuncle, like for real. But we'll see. I mean, maybe he's just saying that one of the new carbuncle glams will be proto-carbuncle. I don't know. It's a very open-ended answer, kind of. I'm doing custom deliveries like Zloyer and Monago, and when purchasing materials, I would sometimes make mistakes and bought the component materials instead of just the component. And since recent custom deliveries only require the component instead of needing materials, are there any plans to unify them or remove it? Yeah, they're talking about tidying these kinds of things up. They don't know when, but they are working on this, and it's something that they apologize for not having done yet. Eventually, when that happens, there will be cases where some items can no longer be used, and in that case, they'll make an announcement on the lodestone. Direct answer, just saying, yeah, this is something we need to tidy up, and we're working on it. Question 6 from this alliance. I'm playing the game with a keyboard and mouse. When I right-click during combat and turn the camera, I sometimes end up targeting my party members. I've done that. That's a big thing. And I get detached from targeting the boss, and sometimes this broke my rotation. It feels annoying. Will it be possible to add a setting that doesn't allow target switching with right-click? You know, every time... I just made a video about top 5 quality of life that I would add to the game. I didn't even think of this. I would love this. Yes, please. So he's right. There is a setting that doesn't target when you're clicking on yourself. But fortunately, by the end of this, he says, an option where it doesn't click on other party members, but this isn't possible, no, since the party member info is obtainable, then if we want to do it, it should be possible. Yeah, it should be possible. I'll be asking the dev members, but I wonder if there were elements that hindered this. So he thinks it should be possible. He can't think of a reason why it wouldn't be. But yeah, oh, dude, man, people are smart. I like that person who asked that question, because as somebody who holds and presses right click constantly in Raid, I feel him. So yes, I'm glad that got asked, and I hope that I will use that setting if it gets incorporated. This is a question regarding the 4th floor of Savage P8S, the Savage content, which includes a DPS check. It's definitely a challenging content. The healing check for the second half of the battle is really tight, and compared to Dragon Song Reprise, I feel there are certain parts in the second half of the battle that contain healing checks that are more comparable to what Ultimate would require. Personally, I welcome the increase in healing intensity, but it causes the party to have the party finder to have lack of healers. So you're saying part of the reason for party finder recruitment lack of healers is the difficulty of the healing? Yeah, I mean, that's part of a reason, but I think that's actually a compound thing. Like, if people don't want to heal because the healing is tough, it's also because the game hasn't prepared you for that healing enough. So players who are newer and on healer, who are picking up Raid for the first time or trying to improve their skill, they just haven't been prepared enough. And this is constantly an issue in Final Fantasy XIV, where too much of the content doesn't prepare the players for the highest end of content. And I think almost anyone would agree with me on that one. So I think the person could be right, but it is a compound issue. Because if that was a more normal thing in Final Fantasy XIV that you experienced even earlier on, then it probably wouldn't be as much of an issue later on. So all Yoshi-P ends up saying is if it gives an answer to one of these questions, it won't work for the other one. Right? We are told that healers are free, which is why healers tend to focus on firepower instead. Basically saying there's not a lot of healing requirement. We should give healers more situations where they need to heal. So we increased the healing work required, for the entire expansion, and we did it. But as expected, this happened, so what are we supposed to do now? Oh god, if anything, I should be the one trying to discuss with you guys here. Yeah, I knew this will definitely happen. I thought we achieved a pretty good balance, but yeah. If we have to start decreasing the difficulty, I'll get comments saying it's too lax. Well, I need data. Either way, we did indeed increase the intensity for sure, although this was a balance that was asked of us. This is a personal disparity. Yeah, there are healers who are completely fine with this tuning. There are other healers who will go, this is too hard. I apologize, but this will allow us to continue to ponder on the matter. Yeah, if it's harder to heal, it's harder to heal. That's my opinion on it. I agree that DSR might have been too easy to heal at times. A DSR was like a massive mitigation check. Like you need exact mitigations at so many exact parts. And there are spots where, you know, you need to make sure you have enough healing between a certain area, you know, or there's mobility and healing required at the same time. So you need certain skills available. But in terms of just like constant intensity, yeah, I think that the second part probably has some things that are a little bit more intense for P8S. So I understand what the person is saying. But also, like, what are you going to do? It's hard content. And if it makes better healers out of more people, then so be it. Will there be further chances where players can do dungeons, PvP, and whatnot with Yoshi-P, Takeda-san, and other members of the dev team? So they said the community team does do quite a few things, and they have done things in the past. They did conduct a segment in the past where they had a group of 7 dev members play with one person that had cleared, progging an old raid with Echo turned on. I remember that. I didn't watch it, but I do remember when that happened. Should be with one of the 12 hours. Yeah, I don't know if there's a rebroadcast or something. Yeah, so they might have something there somewhere on the internet. There are hardcore players here, and they really went all out to the point they can't really work that. They can't really work that day. Well, yeah, the balance can be difficult to achieve anyway. Well, even if I actually play the game a lot, I do have a lot of players praise my skill and so on, but there are so many higher skill players out there, yes. So I don't really want to force this on the development staff, and I don't want them to go through such trouble. You may think I can do this without facing issues much, but I can tell you that it's tiring. Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree to that. It is very, very tiring. Not to mention getting salary proportional to the work done. Really, that's how their salary is done. Interesting. And on top of that, going through the other players commenting they're good or they suck. Oh, he doesn't want them to get harassed. Yeah, I mean, I should have thought that first. Yeah. Then they might get sick of it, and then they might just not want to do it anymore and not even want to work on the game anymore. He just wants to keep morale up. He doesn't want them to have to focus on things like that versus, you know, working on the game. So, still see. See, maybe when they're up for it, but, you know, not all the time. I love taking screenshots. I use G-Pose a lot, but would it be possible to add more slots where I can save my camera layouts? He said, yeah, should be possible. I'll let them know. We just need to check some things. That's it. Answer's done. Any plans on selling Soken-themed acrylic stands? I'd be happy to buy them as an omake for 14 related goods. If possible, I want a Yoshida-themed acrylic stand as well. Yoshida is just like, wait, what? It's just kind of, he's just like, yeah, that's a little strange. And Foxconn's like, yeah, if we do that, yeah, there's definitely people who would buy it, but there's going to be a lot of people who are not a big fan of us just making acrylics of our development team. And yeah, Yoshida's like, yeah, we're definitely going to get told about that. We will receive a lot of negative comments about that. Let's see. He says, if we can earn an income by selling ourselves through goods or whatnot, if this is our job, then I'm fine with it anyway. I mean, I could become a YouTuber after retiring, and then I'm going to come up with all these Yoshida-based goods. Yeah, maybe I'll do a Yoshida cafe or a Yoshida bar, and open something like a Yoshida pension for the Warriors of Light. Oh, man, wait, and you know, do snowboarding together. Did you just tell us what the next Gold Saucer event is? Maybe. It's not the case right now. I know Soken isn't here to answer the question, but I am myself available as free materials. Essentially saying people can make Yoshida-related stuff for the time being, and he knows that it's out there. He said that he saw a Yoshida-themed bag during FanFest. He just sees his face plastered all over this bag. And then there are also a bunch of free materials for Soken as well. So just, he's saying if you want to do these things yourself, you know, go ahead. But we're not going to do them officially or anything like that. Yoshida was like, apparently the player who made the bag is the player who is asking the question. And he's like, thank you for your time. It just really shocked me. So yeah, I'm sorry. So silly. I love the music in 14, and I've been collecting orchestrions. There are songs that are listed in the lodestone more than 2 years ago, but not obtainable in game. Some of them are part of what's it called, like CD releases and stuff, so they're probably talking about that. They also do seasonal event ones, but those usually only take a year to get added back to the game. He says if it's somewhat missing, we'll make them available as purchasable items. So if you've missed an orchestrion roll in the past, there's a chance you'll be able to get it on the Mog Station. Sounds about right. Any more plans to rerun Yokai? And he's like, okay, next time I talk to Hino-san, he'll probably say sure, so I'll ask him. I really love the Fat Chocobo hat, and I always play the game with the hat on, but I want to know if you can make it dyeable. There you go. Let's see. Basically, I want to maintain the impersonation aspect and not overdo it as much as possible, as there's many types of Chocobo. but he will have to confirm to see if it's possible. He'll let him know. Got to say this though, the picture is slick. There's a picture that is shown that obviously I don't have right here. Hayashi later passed by and Yoshi asked about the Fat Chocobo Head Dye. The answer is yes. So we will be able to dye the Fat Chocobo Head in the near future. Hi here, I'm an old warrior of light about the same age as Yoshi-P. I've cleared all the content, all the savages, all the ultimates. I'm interested to know how many players around 50 have cleared high difficulty raids. And Yoshi-P just says they don't possess that kind of data. Like, technically they could, like, you know, obviously with accounts being made and birthdays being registered, they know, like, they know how many people in like certain age groups are using their services or whatnot. Like, they have that information, but they have never collected the data specifically cross-examined against clear rates. So they just don't have that. Just think of ourselves as light bringers, and that should be enough. Yes, let's go with that. Let's go with that. Instead of thinking how many people around, think of ourselves as the ones left. I don't like that. I don't like that. Oh, Kingdom Hearts. Years ago, listen, I remember this channel, www.youtube.com/Xehanort1227 or /u/Xehanort, whatever YouTube does for this. But the collaboration, just, let me read it. Years ago, you mentioned there's a huge hurdle to get past when collaborating with Kingdom Hearts, so is this still a possibility? Of course, I'd be fine with just the characters from the Square Enix side, and I'm aware with other side needs to improve when it comes to costumes and weapons and so on. Am I right in assuming so? He just says yes. It is exactly as you think. It's gonna be a problem. Dude, what's the scariest thing, I think, in all of this answer? He talks about how he would want it to be something big and massive, but he can't say anything about it. If I don't do something like increasing 5% of the player's sub fee, this definitely won't be a reality. I think he's saying the cost of just doing this would require that. That is not surprising, and that is nuts. You think this is something that can be easily done, but I gotta tell you that the business world is not a gentle one when dealing with such a huge company situated in North America, the one that is dominating the entertainment industry around the world. And you take things lightly, if you take things lightly, you're gonna get told things like that you're a really ignorant fellow who knows nothing about the world. So in other words, if you just say, just do it, it doesn't make it any easier. So stop saying it. I'm currently a second-year university student who's majoring in robotics. I got hooked when playing 14 3 years ago. Now I'm aiming to join Square Enix, but my current major is very disconnected and far from being related to game design. So my question here is, what should I do in order to work under you? You mentioned before that in order to work on battle-related stuff, I need some calculation skills, and I happen to be good at math. I happen to be good at maths, plural maths. So I'm having high hope here, but what do you think I should do so that I can join the battle team and work under you? If you have the skills you listed in the chat, then I think you have what it takes to join our company. I definitely appreciate skilled people, and you have what it takes to work on a battle-related task. I want to know if battle content is open for application. It's open, right? I think we look at battle content. He's basically saying, please try. Please put in an application. Let's see. So, I mean, we have Nakagawa Daisuke, who we talked about earlier, who's originally an assembler and worked on things completely unrelated to game, and he joined us with an engineering background, so I think it's possible. Just look at the recruitment section. You'll be asked to send in an assignment, and if you truly love 14, you can definitely cook something up. One of the good things about our company here is that we are not a company where you can no longer try after your application gets rejected. Our company will always be open for you to challenge again, so if you want to know what you lack and so on, even if you don't have what it takes right now, I think this is something we can let you know about. Just come out with something with the best of your ability. See, here's the thing. Is it bad? I want to apply for a job. I don't want a job at Square Enix because I don't speak Japanese, and that's a requirement. But I want to do this application because it sounds like they make you come up with a battle content in order to as like part of your application. I just want to send it to them. And I want someone to like translate it all to Japanese. I just want to see what the reply is. That's it. That's all I want to do. It's not a good thing. You should not use. Let me put a disclaimer. I'm not going to do this. Number one, and number two, do not use the Square Enix process for hiring battle content designers to just see a reply and see if they liked what they saw, because they are seriously looking for people who meet the criteria for a job on the team. So that is my disclaimer. And on top of that disclaimer, that is it for the Q&A. I had a lot of fun reading through this. It took an hour. It was about half the time that it took for them to do the actual Q&A. Actually, no, I think this Q&A was only an hour on the stream, so we took the same amount of time just going over all the answers. There you go. It's like you watched it yourself. Perfect. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this video on the Q&A. If you want to check it out, again, description of the video has the links to both of these Reddit pages. If you click the first one, there's also a link at the bottom, I believe, or even a link at the top that'll take you to the second one. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for me. Thank you again to Luna Minori for doing the translations and posting it over on the Reddit Discord. And remember, it's unofficial, so take some of it with a grain of salt. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see all of you in the next video. And until then, take care.